business card. So I thought, well, that's super visual, and like people always respond to that pun. Let's lean into it. So I created this giant 6x4 banner that says just our name right in the middle, and then it's just big, greasy, slimy looking warty pickles as the full background, 6 feet by 4 feet of slimy pickles. And at our booth, we handed out jewel cases, the small jewel cases full of sliced.
Yo, what is up? This is Christian D. Evans, host of Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. And I just want to share with you real quick, thank you. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. It really means a lot to us, but also our community. And, if you like this, please share this with your friend, your family, a colleague, someone that you don't even like. Definitely share that with them. And then also leave a comment and a review for us. We really do appreciate that. And show our guests some love if you find that this episode really resonates with you. Secondly, also want to share with you some really awesome news. I've had the Fortune Opportunity Network and have incredible guests, 8 and 9 figure entrepreneurs, CEOs, and founders on our podcast. And what we've done is we've actually been able to open up a Be Uncommon, if you can, mastermind, where we're able to open up the door for so many of you, right? Those that are 6-figure, 7-figure entrepreneurs that are scaling, that are struggling, that really want to level up their game, their business, their life, whatever it is. I'm able to open up that door for you with this Be Uncommon If You Can mastermind. Now, we're only taking a select few of individuals. So what you'll need to do is go to christiandeevans.com/mastermind-now. And the link is actually in the description as well. Guys, that is christiandeevans.com/mastermind-now. We're only opening this up for a select few of individuals that really want to level up their game. You have a conversation with me, see if you qualify. And guys, enjoy the episode. And remember, be uncommon if you can. Cheers. Thank you so much for tuning into Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. I'm your host, Christian D. Evans, and we have an awesome digital marketer on today. He is the one that puts the fun back into sales funnels, and my gosh, we're going to be having a lot of conversation, a lot of fun stuff talking about with this individual. So he has been featured in a sales and marketing professional for more than 17 years. In 2016, he co-founded the eVisibility Media Department, quickly building up to $1 million revenue channel. As one of the early and continuing pioneers of emerging media marketing, he has managed campaigns for several flagship clients and been a source of innovation. His wealth of principal marketing knowledge and experience as a published author in online and trade publications, combined with an educational approach with clients, makes him a dynamic and engaged orator. In 2008, his volume and management eclipsed well over 3 billion targeted impressions and over 12,000 manual social media deliverables. He's also involved with developing a number of projects: Rock9 Digital, a boutique performance marketing agency, and GVR, a new socially driven means of exchange gifts, and so much more. He's also the co-founder, CEO of SalesEnable.us. My friend, Daniel Redman. How you doing, my man?
I'm good. Let's go, Christian. Let's get them. It's
Awesome.
magic today.
Yes, we are.
You got me hyped with my own bio that, honestly, who wrote that thing? It was...
Well, hey, I'm excited because that's you, man. That's 100% you. So, hey, I'm looking forward to diving into this. You have incredible knowledge in this avenue, but wait till I prove
you right on that.
Well, one of the things you mentioned before we jumped in onto this podcast here is really just talking about conversational sales, right? But before we dive into that, kind of share with me, so many people, the evolution of the customer, right? Client. It's always constantly changing. And we can't use those same tactics that we used, 5, 7, even 3 years ago. And what I find so interesting is everybody just tries to push out the same garbage, and they try to be being maybe more custom in regarding their approach, email automation, LinkedIn automation. So I'd like to ask you, where do you see most businesses get it wrong in their business and in their sales structure?
Oh man, I hope you've got a long time allocated for us today, Christian D, because there's a lot there. There's a lot there that I'm going to vent about. Just to give you a starting point and set the table for you. 10 years ago, the average amount of touches it took in sales prospecting to advance a sale was 4. 2 emails. We had email 10 years ago. Yeah, we had email. 2 emails, 2 phone calls. We've got ourselves like a next stage business opportunity. Last year, that number was over 14. So we've had an over 200% increase in the amount of touches it takes to advance new business, which you might go, oh yeah, whatever. So just like make more dials. No, every time you dial, every time you send an email, every time you connect message on LinkedIn, there's a time allocation connected to that. So if you ask salespeople to do 200% more things, you're asking them either A, to work longer hours, or you're asking them to work a smaller lead volume. And that is crushing a lot of companies, primarily like SMBs, mid-size, like smaller mid-sized companies. The enterprise has like known about this for a long time and uses the best technology and has for a long time. They have like robots selling for them already. But the small guys always get screwed. All right. So that's kind of crazy. The thing that's like the most troubling about it though is like, God bless the small business, and people try and like DIY their way into modern sales environments. And what happens is it's just like investing in stocks. Do you invest in any stocks or crypto or anything like that, Christian?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear it. So the thing, like whenever you get like a hot tip, especially in crypto's the worst at this. You should buy like Dachshund coin. You know, it's the next Shiba Inu. By the time you hear that, the run is gone. The run is gone. You know, the same holds true in sales outreach. Like if you go to HubSpot's blog, HubSpot, SalesLoft, Outreach.io, anyone that's like on the edge of sales engagement, that's doing the modern best sales engagement tactics and techniques and knowledge base, the second you read a blog about how to write a cold email on one of those sites, there are 5,000 minimum other salespeople that are using the exact same template and pushing send at the very same time, and you're screwed. You've all of a sudden fallen into like an abyss of sameness where all of the emails, and I'm sure like you and any other person that, you know, all 3 people that are listening to this podcast right now, sorry, I'm messing with you, but are you know, are probably saying, yeah, I get like 20 emails a day from people soliciting me and they all sound kind of alike. That's why people are working off of the same knowledge base to get there and think that they can advance their outreach, move past like some of the troubles and challenges that they've had in outreach by following all of the same people. And it doesn't work like that. In order to like properly sell today, you've kind of got to be unique, but it's not about uniqueness. It's about being real, authentic, and offering real connection to people. That's the stuff that like gets you past the boundary, because bulk many to many and many to one automated selling is so dead. It's so dead. It takes you literally like lighting an entire forest on fire in automation to get a few wounded rabbits to hop out. If you just do it like the old fashioned way of like, hey, here's the thing that I do. I know this to be true about you. So click on my Calendly link. You're dead. You're dead in the water if that's your approach. Sorry, I went off on a crazy tangent there with you, but
no, you're good, man. And what I find so interesting is you're just hitting massive pain in a lot of businesses, because it's like they're stuck in a situation where it's like, okay, I want to scale, and the only way to scale is to automate, right? And so they think by really just automating, oh, that's going to help consistent with my scaling ability. But the reality is that, you know, you need consistent amount of sales. And so my thing is like, I understand like sometimes you need more like cold outreach, BDRs in place, account reps, SDRs on the back end. And there's different processes. And I'd like to kind of get your response, Daniel, because it's like, the things have pivoted, things have changed, right? Even from, a VSL to a webinar, all that stuff has changed. It still works to some extent, but it's changed. And so you kind of always have to pivot. And so my question is like, I've gotten LinkedIn messages, I've got cold emails, I've got all these things. Some work, some don't. But it's like you just can't just keep copying and pasting the crap. We know that. So what strategies do you help your clients work with to be able to say, okay, these are the most effective conversational um, you know, sales strategies that work long term, that produce the best conversions?
Yeah. So it's kind of a crazy thing to say, and I realize I'm about to sound insane. But right now, the best thing that you can focus on is attempting to create relationships. Don't think about people in terms of the size of your database or numbers. Don't think in terms of brute force selling. Think, how can I be custom? How can I be personalized? How can I offer insight? How can I give? Those things, those like lost arts of finding value and being valuable to a prospect, that's where the new $1 million niches are. To give you an example, I launched a new offer to people in my database that I only did outreach to 12 people. I enrolled 12 people in a sequence. I got an 89% open rate, and I got a 25% reply rate. I don't need to target 1,000 person, even 1,000 person list if I'm thinking small. Think about like what's an offer that maybe just 10 people are really interested in, instead of one that maybe 10 in 1,000 are interested in. And I think the smaller you can pare that down and create small use cases, you're gonna win. You're gonna pull in business. You're gonna resonate with more people. You're not gonna burn your lists. You're gonna be healthy, sanity wise. You're not gonna have to buy 50 domains to send out 5 million emails. Like, all around, it's such a better way to live, to think small in terms of your outreach.
Well, what's interesting is it's like, I like to approach it more like that sniper approach, right? It's like, hey, you know
Yeah.
what? Instead of this gunshot approach, which we've heard, and what's so interesting to me is like, even though we've seen that it does not work, it does not produce by sending out tons of LinkedIn, blast and just random selling and all that stuff. We it's like, it's so funny how many people still do it though. How many salespeople still process it because they just don't want to put any time and energy into it. And the reality of what you're saying, Daniel, is like, hey, you put like 10% of your energy, just on 10%, into actually producing a really good email or a really good like message, building that relationship on the front end. And yeah, maybe you don't push through 100 cold calls. Yeah, maybe you don't push out like 10, 15 cold emails, but you do maybe one or two, and all of a sudden it's really dialed in. It's very specific. Guess what? The conversions are much better. And that's basically what you're saying. It's not a quantity game. It is a quality game. I'm doing less amount, but in larger conversions on the back end. And at what point did you start realizing that this was the strategy? Because I think it's always been that strategy, but where you're like, okay, I'm going to totally go full throttle on this because I know the conversions just work better.
It was October 12th, 2019. I really like completely hinged and pivoted my entire company, discovering something like that. It was through LinkedIn, experimenting on LinkedIn, because I was sending out the same message that everyone else was. And then I decided, why don't I just like ask people how they're doing? And I've got this crazy chart, Christian, like that shows my revenue in 2019. Most of the chart is embarrassing because like you can see it like, wow, dude, how were you alive? How were you like buying food? And then like existential crisis, and then giant like peak on the tail end of it. When I switched to conversational, it literally changed everything. Just engaging people in communication does a number of things. You learn a lot faster because you get a lot more feedback. You build a lot more relationships, even when you don't win. You build a bigger network. Like there's so many like positive byproducts in addition to earning a lot more business that it's crazy. It's actually crazy. It's crazy that like being cool to people is a thing.
Well, it's funny because it's like one of the things I've seen, even in the cold email and LinkedIn or Instagram, whatever. It's like because Gary Vee said content, give value, give content, right? I get a message that says, "Hey, here, check out my new PDF. Check out my new thing." Well, I didn't really want that. Thank you, but I didn't really. I'm not going to spend my time looking at that.
Yeah.
But one of the things is when I get a message from someone, either an audio or a video on LinkedIn, and says, "Hey, Christian, such a pleasure talking to you, man. I really just wanted to network connect. Oh my gosh. Hey, I saw that you're doing this, this, and this." Like they took the time to look at my profile. All of a sudden, what did that do to me? They didn't even pitch me. They didn't do nothing other than just that one little thing. That was so effective, so extremely effective.
Yeah.
And definitely because in today's world, we're very interconnected. I love to get more like, what other strategies have you discovered that it's like, okay, you can automate to some extent, but also is very effective?
I just rolled something out this week. I hope the person that I rolled this out on isn't listening, but I found like a little toy solution, that like bumps up. You're on it too. Actually, you have this because I've seen you on the threads. That like throws a lightning storm at LinkedIn posts. That like pings a bunch of people to like go to LinkedIn posts and bump them up, and all that likes it and throws in like comments and stuff like that. So I've been just watching my LinkedIn feed, and I'll see somebody that I'd like to engage with, CEO of a company that does blank. Cool, I want to talk to them. I'll message them and say, "Hey, I saw your post. I think it's interesting. Do you mind if I drop a fucking rainstorm on this post?" They're never going to say no. And 20 minutes later, I've got 200 people interacting with their LinkedIn post. And then I check in and I get excited about that with them afterwards. Dude, how many impressions did you get on that post? It went crazy. Oh my God, did you see the comments? They were like so engaged. They loved your post. This is like the next thing. Like, this is amazing. And I've just created a raving fan for absolutely no reason. Literally no reason. But guess what? I can go back to that well whenever I want right now. I could go back to it and say, "Hey, I need your help with something." And do you think they're going to say yes or no at this point? If I've just gone out of my
100%.
way to like random act of absolute kindness, social media kindness, giving, finding ways to give and be valuable. I call it a pork chop, offering someone a pork chop because it's a valuable item. I don't know why I picked pork chop, but I guess better than some alternatives. But like, can you be insightful? Can you offer good feedback? Can you be a shoulder to cry on? Can you be a good like peer-to-peer contact? Honestly, like I've taken calls from absolute weirdos that just said like, "I want to commiserate with you. I'm a CEO too. And like, it's hard. Can we talk?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I want to hear what this guy has to say." Like, so being a good connection is great salespersonship. You find that like when you do that, you start thinking a little bit more globally about being a referral source too. And if you're able to dole out business, it's going to come back to you tenfold. Knowing your contacts, knowing your connections, knowing your network, man, all that stuff is next level. That's when you hit like the next rung of the ladder up, is when you can have a little bit more God mode in your own network. That you've capitalized on that. You understand those things. Here we are on an awesome podcast because you understand the value of relationships and how that stuff really translates into authority.
Yeah, and it's interesting because
Am I
see,
pulling the curtain back on you too much? Am I?
no, this is brilliant,
Okay.
brilliant.
All right.
No, and actually, I think it's really cool because that's a cool strategy. Because again, you're going out of your way, and it's so funny how like how simple that strategy is, but it's so effective, right? I remember one guy, he was telling me how, hey, I was able to get into like a business, like top like Fortune 500 company, and talk to a CEO because all I did on LinkedIn was wish him a happy birthday. Hey, happy birthday, man! And he's like, wow, someone remembered. Like,
Yeah.
and it was like all of a sudden, hey, I'm willing to talk to you. Like, it's just those small, stupid things, but it's like, you don't have to pitch them. You just be real, right? It's just be authentic. But to me, let me ask you this, Daniel. Why do you think people do it? And to me, I think it's more, they think so short term. They think so transactional. Oh, I got to make money. I got to put food on the table. I got to do it now instead of thinking long term and say, okay, if I keep building relationships over a long enough period of time, I know the fruits of my labor will be much massive in results that I could ever produce in a transactional way. But I'd love to get your response.
Yeah. Yeah. The people that play the long game are the ones that really like make waves, for sure. So many people get caught up in the fear, like that fear of loss, the fear of failure, and that's what drives people to like react brashly, right? No, we've just got to tell them everything. Yeah, and then they'll buy from us. Let me tell you about some buddies of mine that everyone thought they thought these guys were totally insane. Some local San Diego guys, through a community launch party. And I knew these dudes. I played softball with them, and I was like, these guys are cool. I want to hang out with them. I'm curious to hear what they've got going on. So I showed up. There was like 40 people in the room because these dudes are like super charismatic. They have people, they know people like them, just where, and they're known in their community. So I show up and I'm sitting amongst 40 people, and lights go down. They pop up a presentation, and one of the very first slides is the long hairs, a community for men with long hair. And I heard people around me going, are you fucking serious? This is the stupidest thing ever. A community for people with long hair? Dude, that's dumb. And like, what about short hair people? Like it's exclusive. Like, who's gonna like, and what are they doing? How are they gonna make money on that? Haters. There were probably 38 haters out of 40 people there. They just started, they started handing out business cards, walking the street to dudes with long hair, dudes with man buns, just handing out cards that said the long hairs on them, handing out brushes to dudes with long hair. Suddenly they had 1,000 people, then they had 5,000, then they had 10,000 people globally that were in this like forum and community of people that talked about hair products and hair care and stigma around man buns, and like, beware of the man bun cutter that's hanging around the Eastgate Mall. They built that, and then they got invited to pitch on Shark Tank, and they got a deal. Mark Cuban gave them a deal, and they launched an entire line of hair ties with cool like rocket launchers and tanks and shit on the hair ties. And then they went into like shampoos and conditioners. Now they've got an empire. But you know what? It started with 38 out of 40 haters sitting in a room saying this will never work. But what they understood better than anybody I've ever seen is the power of community and the power of connection between people. Because all of a sudden you've got 10,000 people that are aligned around a central belief, a common thread. They've got homies, like you've built something around people, and you're providing an experience. And that is way more powerful than any sales outreach they could have ever done, to like cold call people with long hair, or just brand, iron brand someone in the butt with their outreach over like a 30-day period with emails and calls, and it would have never worked. but the way they did it is the only way it could have worked. And it was the long play, it was the slow play, and the one that they got a lot of hate for early on. But those dudes, like, they proved a lot of people wrong. And it's been an unbelievable, like, inspiration for me to see that.
That's awesome, because it is a different paradigm shift. You have to switch that mindset tremendously from a short term to a long term. And the thing is like, honestly, we see the power of the long term play, right? We see the Elon Musk, we see the Gary Vee's, we see those individuals that have played that long play. But it's the reality is that, are you willing to withstand that length? Sometimes that may not,
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And talking about revenue, you're talking about cash flow, you're talking about, obviously, processes and stuff like that. It's like, hey, are you willing to withstand it? And that's the question that I think a lot of companies concern. I know that's one of the reasons why direct response marketing is so powerful, because it's like, well, I can basically, in a very short period of time, make a pretty good amount of money if you're good at it. And I can, take that money and reinvest it back into the business, and I can basically become self-sustaining pretty quickly. But obviously, if you want to play long term, you have to switch the play, and you have to switch the strategy. So my question to you is, in the sales industry, okay, we get the power of the long play. We get the power of the conversation as well, right? Being more strategic in that approach. What are certain, let's say, for example, when your sales is a psychology game, right? But definitely in the B2B world. And I'd love for you to kind of explain a little bit, like, not what's the difference between B2C to B2B, but how to effectively sell in the B2B world, because there's a few things that a lot of people aren't familiar with. One, you're dealing with a lot of different decision makers. And two, it becomes less emotional. Even though it is still emotional sale, it becomes less emotional. You can't just typically ask those same B2C questions that you do with the B2B world. So I'd love for you to kind of explain a little bit about that process and effectively, like, sell a B2B contract or something.
Yeah. So a couple things that I always consider and think about is, how do I cut through? How do I cut through the noise? How do I break this, like, gray fog that people work in? You're sitting in an office. Now a lot of people are back to the office. Sitting in an office, you've got your little cubicle, you've got your little water cooler, you're punching away on your laptop. Everything is a neutral color around you. You've got a couple little pinned pictures on the wall. You've got some, like, a little drawing of a heart that your daughter did for you. And, that those little tiny mementos from your life get you from 9 o'clock to 5 p.m. Right. The in-between time, you're putting on a brave face. You're building this facade of, like, a strong, capable, authoritative person. And then you're going home and crying to your family in the evening. I'm painting a picture that's not relevant to absolutely everybody, but I'm just saying, like, that, it's a grind. It's a grind, right? It is a grind. I don't care what you do. Even if you say you love your job, you're probably grinding. How do you talk to somebody like that in general? Right? Like, how do you speak to that person differently than you would a person? No, dummy, they're persons. They're all persons. Everyone's a person. Everyone's human. What humans want doesn't change whether they're in the four walls of a drab office or, like, they're watching Squid Games in the comfort of their living room. They still have some of the same wants, needs, and desires. So I have a metric that I track in HubSpot. We're a HubSpot company, and it's jokes. I have a joke thing field, and every time I say a joke in the sales process to a prospect, I'll actually tick it. I'll tick the box, and I track jokes as a custom field in HubSpot so that I could go back later and discover how many jokes it took, or what, like, the correlation was between jokes told and deals won. It's my belief that that is what cuts the noise. Personality cuts the noise. Realness still cuts the noise. The playground doesn't matter. And I think a lot of people get hung up on, well, what if we were pitching big companies? Like big companies don't. I actually I came to an epiphany about this. I'm gonna brag about this because I'm excited about it, and you're a captive audience, Christian D. So you got to hear this. I had a mentor up until a couple months ago. They kept telling me, he said, Dan, I would never do business with you. I would never work with you. And he is a salty dog from a Fortune 500 executive, like C-level at a former C-level Fortune 500. And his note in saying that to me was, I'm not polished enough for him. I'm not professional enough. My website doesn't speak to him in a way that he could take it to his management and his like team and say, look at this company. They look good enough for us to work with. I'm covering my ass, by hiring this company. I leaned into that at first, and I rebranded my whole I restructured my whole website to cut out all of like the fun actions in it and like the jokes, the puns. I took all that out and built a checkbox site, thinking, yeah, he's right. This mentor's right. He's done it before, right? He's at this level. He's been at that level. That's where I want to be. That's who I want to pitch and win. And so I did that. Has it increased our sales in any way? Absolutely not. Hasn't. And a couple weeks ago, I was sitting at my desk, just like I am now, staring at my background as I am now, the Zoom background that I've had for like over 2 years. And I realized, man, I hate this new website. I hate it. It doesn't inspire me. It doesn't motivate me. I have no connection to it personally or like culturally. There's nothing about it that says me in this website and this presence, the online presence that we were building to like appease this mentor, right? And I saw this background and I was like, oh my God, raise the sales, raise the sales, raise the sales, Christian, raise the sales. So we're now 2 weeks into like a total rebrand from the checkbox website that I hate, that like just annoyed me, didn't speak to me, didn't excite me, to not pirate, but mysterious nautical themed. You know why? Because I find that I'm more effective as a salesperson when I'm passionate about the thing I do, when I can brag about something that I'm working on, when all the collateral behind me is cohesive and consistent and backs up my words. And my words are, as I'm talking to you today, my words are like, you can pretty much guess that I'm not going to have much of a filter. I'm going to say the things that I think and mean, and that's going to resonate with a lot of people, and the people that it doesn't aren't my target. They're not the people that I want to talk to. As a result, we attract a lot of the clients that fit our company culture. And we have a lot, and we're growing, and we have people knocking on our door to work with us. So, my advice to somebody would be to find that connection, find that through line, find that excitement, find the passion, express the passion. When I get off a call with somebody, I'm willing to bet that most consistently, even if they don't buy, they will say that I'm passionate about the thing that I do, because I've built around me things that I care about. That's to me that's how I sell, and that's how I found success in selling.
That's awesome, man. And I appreciate you sharing that, because and being authentic and sharing, like, first of all, a few things. One is, you don't always have to listen to that mentor, right? That mentor may or may not know the whole thing, right? They've been there and done that, but the reality is they don't know what drives you. And I think that's really good, because it's like, it's tough to not listen to that mentor, because it's like, okay, I know he's been able to produce results, but it's like I also know that he doesn't know my strategy and the way I do things. Secondly, also, I do like your approach of being fun and unorthodox in the way you approach things. And the reason why is because, see, it's just like you said, you have to cut through the noise. You have to create attention. And literally, as I've had tons of people on different podcasts, one individual said that, majority of his emails were like just very professionally developed, B2B kind of structure. And then all of a sudden he switched over to more of just very simple, almost have some mistakes in them, all that stuff, because then all of a sudden the open rate and the click-through rate was, much better. And then as well as like crazy different, subject lines. It was so unprofessional, right? Quote unquote. But then his results were just way more productive. And he's like, wow, this is really good marketing. And then also I had another guy, he was working with some people in the e-com space. And in order to reach out to them, what he did is he sent out poop emojis. Poop emojis is big, printed out and said, hey, would love to talk. And then all of a sudden, guess what? It was sent out. Why was that so effective? Because guess what? They get tons of email, they get tons of mail, but they don't get tons of poop mail, And so I just thought that was so brilliant because, again, just a foot stop what you're saying, Daniel. Noise, attention is being thwarted all different places, and you have to be funny, you have to be unorthodox in the way you approach things. Because I mean, how many websites have we seen as, oh, I'm the best salesperson in the world, blah blah blah, and we sales coach, blah blah blah. Okay, cool, wonderful, next, right? But all of a sudden you go to yours, it's like, oh, that's funny, that's exciting. In fact, if people go look on his Daniel Redman's LinkedIn page, he actually, in the video portion, it's really quite funny. I'm not even going to mention what he says because it's really, really quite funny and it's really entertaining. Again, one of the reasons why I want to have him on our podcast. But side note, but again, I love that approach. And let me ask you this, like, let's talk a little bit about, like, because of your approach, because of your ingenuity and your creative way of doing things, how have you been able to land clients? Like you said, you're seeing the doors knock on. I mean, tons of people requesting to be part of your business and stuff like that, which is awesome. But like, what have you seen in production results? And then as well as being able to open up doors because, like, man, that caught me, Daniel. I love what you got going on.
So are you asking like individual tactics that we've used that are
Correct.
maybe out of the box, or?
Yes, correct. Tactics that you've used, and then as well as, like, obviously the result because of that tactic.
Yeah. So one thing comes to mind right away that was really effective for us early in the year. I'll get into something that's more digitally driven in a second, but I think you'll like this one. We exhibited at our first trade show in January, and going into the trade show, one thing was abundantly clear is we're pretty small to be at the trade show. A lot of the companies that are going to be there, a lot bigger, more revenue, more established. We're kind of on the early end, and so for us, how can we stand out amongst the companies that have like the $25,000 booth budget? What are we going to look like in the mix? That was my early question to myself. How is SalesEnable going to be at this show and be effective, knowing that people are going to have like fucking pyrotechnics and laser lights and like confetti and like giving away AirPods and like Crocs at their booth as swag? Is that going to be us? That can't be us, unless I want to like get fully leveraged and take out a loan just to buy swag. That's not going to be us. So what we did was one of our taglines that we've used that I use on my business cards is close deals like a pickle. It was on our original site that I told you we changed from. It's one of the puns that we use, and there's a gigantic, like, gnarly, warty pickle on it, like accompanying this slogan on the back of my business card. So I thought, well, that's super visual, and like people always respond to that pun. Let's lean into it. So I created this giant 6x4 banner that says just our name right in the middle, and then it's just big, greasy, slimy looking warty pickles as the full background, 6 feet by 4 feet of slimy pickles. And at our booth, we handed out jewel cases, the small jewel cases, full of sliced dill pickles and a big sticker that says closed dills like a pickle. We walked away with 35 opportunities from that trade show. A couple closes. We had an RFP request before we even closed the show, the 2-day show. It was huge. It was crazy. People were talking about it. And it was, again, like, just how can we cut across the grain, and be interesting, entertaining, and throw like common sense out the window, right? Because if the mentor was in my ear, he'd say, "You're an idiot. Why would you do that?" Like, there's people are not going to take you seriously. But I'll tell you, it's opened up a lot of doors for us, having that type of approach. On the like digital side and more tactical side, we do so like there's a couple things that we like to do. I do like to use jokes. We actually will use like jokes in LinkedIn automation sequences about a particular industry, whatever industry we're targeting, and make it relevant and tie it into a solution. That's definitely something we do. We also will, we never do Hail Marys in email. I know that's like a big thing. Like, what's the Hail Mary pass, where you ask somebody, "Hey, Christian, you haven't responded because you A, slipped on a banana peel, you B, you just got too busy, or C, you just don't need my services right now. Please just reply back with A, B, or C." Right? Everyone's seen that Hail Mary email. It sucks. It's stupid. Please stop using it. It doesn't work. It's dumb. And I'm embarrassed. I cringe and like throw up in my hands when I see it, that email. But what we will do is we look to, first things first, we actually visually review our email sequences for changes in aesthetic. Are we changing aesthetic? Have we gone from short form, medium form, long form, bullet points, not bullet points? And then towards the end, we'll go like full storytelling mode. And our stories are good. The latest one I rolled out for a marketing agency was about the Byzantine Empire taking over Rome. And it was this entire story that weaved them using merge tags into the story, and used like some flowery Gen Z type language to like punch certain lines out. It was like a good like 1,500 word, plus like story about like ancient Rome being conquered and stuff like that. And we've gotten the responses you get are, "I saw all of your other emails. I didn't reply to them. I thought this was weird, so I replied to it." Cool. That's a win. I take that as a win. We consider those wins all day. Any type of reply, if it's not a hard no, is a win for us. We can work with that. All of like my people are all sales trained, so they know how to go from like an inch to a mile, and that's kind of like the secret sauce. The other thing that we like to use is I know a lot of people are using this stuff, but like dynamic text image overlays. There's a couple big companies. Lemless does them. We use Hyperize as another good one to do them. But basically, create a custom meme that fits your client's agenda, premise, theme of the sequence, and allow like merge tags to drop in on top of it. Is just like a cool like end of sequence thing that we throw out there. Dude, I built a pretty strong client base last year doing one for us that was a 2-panel comic. I guess you'd call it a comic, but basically the top photo was a knight in shining armor, and the image overlay said Christian's sales strategy, and it showed the knight with the armor, blah, blah, blah. The bottom panel was an arrow sticking into a tiny eye slot in the armor, and the arrow was labeled COVID. And I sent that meme out to people on LinkedIn, and I was no shortage of meetings like teed up from that thing. Like I probably won like 12, 13 clients last year just using that meme alone. and that stuff, dude, it's a huge pattern disrupt, right? Like it's a huge pattern disrupt. So that's kind of what we do. We also go in with like largely benefit selling. We never sell in top line messaging. We just like present benefits. And I found that that's extremely effective. People have stigma around certain solutions, or they feel like they understand a solution already with misconceptions, and you don't want them to fall into that. So the way you do that is by just selling the benefit of the thing. Hey, Christian, I know you're probably thinking about this because I am too. Hyperinflation sucks. And I'm trying to come up with a few ways to preserve some of my assets. Can I share a couple of my ideas? So there, I've made it extremely personal. I've become topical. I'm real. I'm authentic. I'm collaborative. And I'm offering to share an idea. And that sort of approach is really what I mean by like, building relationships through conversational outreach.
Wow, I love those tactics and strategies because those are very, very effective. And like you said, it just cuts through the noise. And I just think it's so fun because you bring such creativity to marketing instead of that same typical just, and you're leveraging the B2B world. Right? A lot of times this B2B, we always have this very, convoluted kind of concept. It's got to be very professional. It's got to be all like you were saying earlier on. And like you said, the pickle, it got people to talk. And that's the reality, is you got to get people to talk about it. Whether you like him or hate him, Donald Trump gets people to talk about who? Donald Trump, right? And you have to study his tactics because, the same thing with, how he applauded Putin and all that shenanigans. Again, I know that's controversial. We won't get into it. But the biggest thing is got people to talk about who? Talk about him. And I just love that approach as well, the pickle. I think that's just brilliant. But then, and then also, like you said, jokes, memes, GIFs. I think that's just beautiful. Now, let me ask you this, because you did say something that was interesting to me. Definitely in today's world, with optimization, with strategies and stuff like that, and sequences. I know we get very dialed in and targeted, but I'd like to kind of get your response, because you're not only in the sales category, but you're also in the marketing side of things, and you got some incredible skills in that regard. So when you're seeing like, okay, hey, how do you approach this? And you get some negative feedback, okay? Because obviously you say something different, you say something kind of unorthodox. Let's say, for example, hey, this is unprofessional, stop emailing me, all that shenanigans. There are going to be people like that, right? This is not funny, whatever. Do you adjust to cater to that, or do you just say, hey, you know what, who cares? That's just like sales, right? Law of large numbers.
We send them a poop emoji. No, yeah, listen, yeah, they're literally always going to be haters, and you're never going to appeal to everybody, and that's a hard pill to swallow, for a lot of people. Even when you're taking this like sort of subdued, passive, friendly approach, like you can offer $1, you can just give people $1, and you get a lot of people that'll say no to just receiving $1, right? So I think you just have to have a tough skin for it, but also there are some like warning signs of things that we look for, because we don't want to like fall in love with what we do, right? Like we don't want to be married to it. You can't be married to any of the copy. You can't just immediately fall in love with it and expect it to be a silver bullet. That's not what this is, because the second you do that, you've just pushed yourself down the river without oars. So you have to also think objectively, like what is the feedback that I'm getting? Is it real? Are they just haters? What are my like unsub rates against this? Am I offending too many people? There is like a limit where you think, well, we're not finding traction and we're offending people. That's wrong. There's something wrong there. Or there's a disconnect someplace where we're not advancing people in the way we want to, or they're responding confused. We want to, at least if we're going to say jokes, they need to land in a way that people understand what the hell we're talking about. So there definitely is a little bit of a gray area in with that, and finding a balance there, and reading the warning signs, and just not being in love with anything. Just, this is a test. This is a trial. Everything that you do needs to be scrutinized, regardless how funny you think it is.
That's awesome. I love it. I love the insight, man. Daniel, I appreciate just the value that you brought today, just talking about obviously sales tips, strategies, incredible tactics that are very, very effective in the marketing side of things. And like you said, just more of a relational, system process on the front end. Daniel, how can our audience reach out to you, be part of your community, engage with what you've got going on, bud?
Yeah, grab me on LinkedIn. And you can find me just if you search for Daniel Redman. Or if you email me, you can just email at daniel@salesenable.us and you'll reach me. And look out for that rebrand. The Mysterious Nautical Site is coming the end of next month, will be the launch. And that's going to be exciting. I might dress up in pirate garb for that.
Awesome. Awesome. And guys, that those links will be in the description below, and make sure you guys just be part of what he's got going on and consume his content, because he is on the front end of this creative marketing and really cutting the noise in his strategy. So make sure you click on that, make sure you reach out to him. And Daniel, before we let you go, is there any last words of wisdom that you would like to share?
Words of wisdom, I would say nothing good happens after midnight.
And that, my friend, is Daniel Redman. Until next time, guys, that is Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. And remember, be uncommon if you can. Yo, this is Christian D. Evans, Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. We thank you so much for listening to this amazing episode. If you feel and you know that this was valuable to you, please show some love to our amazing guest by liking this, by commenting on this, by making sure that you do a nice 5-star review, and just show some love to our guest. That'd be really awesome. Also, make sure you share this with a friend, a family, a colleague, someone that you believe would bring value to their life right now. And guys, we just want to say thank you again for just being part of our community. If you want to have more resources, don't be afraid. Go to christiandeevans.com. You can actually schedule a phone call with me, or you can send me an email at christian.evans@beUncommonIfYouCan.com. That's christian.evans@beUncommonIfYouCan.com. Always love to hear some feedback, and let me know what is the number 1 or 2 things that you are struggling in your business and your life, and we'll make sure we have those conversations. Guys, that is Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast, and until next time, remember, be uncommon if you can. Cheers.